In this video, we've got a job that should have taken 2 minutes, but ended up taking an hour just because luck wasn't really on my side that day, unfortunately. We've also got some rat-infested boilers, which as you can imagine was really fun to work on. We've got some Y-plan fault finding. We've got changing over this historic diverter on the main Combi HE. We've got some fault finding with a multimeter on the Ideal. You can tell I ain't posted a video in a while because I can't even talk. And some other jobs that I thought you might find interesting. Before we dive into the video, I just want to say I hope everyone had a great Christmas. I hope your girlfriends, wives, partner, whatever term you use, bought you all the tools you need for the next coming year. Let's get into the video. For this boiler repair, we've got an L2 fault on our Ideal. Now L2 means that the boiler is having an issue igniting. So if we take a look at the combustion triangle, you can see there's 3 things we need for a successful ignition. The first is gas. So I've got my U gauge on the gas valve. I can see that the gas is dropping every time there's an ignition attempt. So we know the gas is good. The second thing we need is a spark. So I'm testing the power going to the spark generator and I'm getting flash voltage of 230. So now I know there's power going to the spark generator. I need to see if the spark generator is working. So I've taken the electrodes out of the heat exchanger, and because the electrodes aren't sparking at all, we know that we've got a failed spark generator. Also, looking at the seal, it's seen better days, so I'm going to change over the seal as well. Changing over the generator is very simple. 2 screws and it falls off. Got the electrodes going in with the new seal. Now that everything is secured down, we can put the electrical connections in. Moment of truth. There we are. Need to do my safety checks, but this boiler is all sorted. For this job, we've got a no hot water, no heating fault on a Worcester. So this repair was very basic. So if we look at the general sequence of a boiler's operation, we can see the first thing we should be getting is a demand. So I've opened up the cover for the PCB and I am getting a demand. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the pump. So that's the connection for the pump right there. I am getting 230 volts, but the pump isn't spinning. So that goes to show that the pump is faulty. It also explains why the boiler display was showing 74 degrees and the boiler didn't seem to be doing anything when I first got to the job. The boiler is firing up, it can't circulate the heat, so it's just waiting to cool down. And again, because the pump isn't circulating, it's struggling to cool down. So first thing I tried to do is unseize the pump, but it seems like it's not seized, it's just not spinning. So I had a spare pump in the back of the van. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug it in so that way I can make sure it works. It does. So now I'm going to take this pump off so I can put that new pump on. Old pump is out, new pump is on. Just have to tighten it up. Put some pressure in. And there we go, boiler's all good. For this boiler fault, we've got E133 on a main Eco Elite, which means ignition lockout. Now, this job was so annoying because it was one of those jobs that was supposed to be simple, but one small thing happened which just turned it into a 2-hour job. I've reset the boiler, ran the hot tap, and when I'm looking through the sight glass to see if it's sparking, it does ignite, but it's got explosive ignition. So 99% is going to be the electrode. As I'm undoing the screws to take the electrodes out, this happens. And in that moment, you can even hear me moaning and groaning because I'm thinking, just why? It was supposed to be so simple, but some things aren't meant to be. But got the electrodes out. These are the old ones compared to the new ones. You can see they definitely need replacing. So now I've got 2 options. I can either try drill that screw out. I did try with pliers, as you can see, but if a screwdriver couldn't get it out to the point where the head snaps, I've got no chance. But I thought I'd try anyway. I was in denial. So yeah, I've got 2 choices. I can try drill it out, or I can just quickly run to the shop and change the burner. So I thought I'd change the burner, and I know I'm gonna get some of you old heads in the comments saying, oh well, you could have drilled it out and blah blah, and you would be right, I could have. But the merchants was about 5 minutes away. I can't remember exactly how much they charged me. It was something like 15 or 20 pound for the whole burner. So in my mind I thought, right, I can spend time trying to drill it all out perfectly, not mess up the thread. It could mess up, I'd have to buy the burner anyway, or quickly go to the merchants, spend £15 on the burner and just change the burner. So that's what I done. In the end, I was glad I changed the burner, because if I take you back to when I was trying to undo this gas nut, you can see how stiff it is. So it's loose, but it's just not unscrewing properly. So I think there's something wrong with the whole burner. It's gone misshaped somehow, and that's why the screw snapped as well. So here on the old burner, you can see that the thread's looking a little bit weird. My guess is someone has put the nut on incorrectly, so they've cross-threaded it. So it was a bit of a challenge to get it all out. I have used a flathead screwdriver to try ping out all the old pieces of metal. But even though I did that, as I was putting this nut back onto the new burner, it still felt a bit stiff. So I thought I'd throw a 50mm stop end in it to force the thread to be okay. So eventually when I did screw it back on, it seemed a lot better. Still a little bit stiff, but I just didn't want to damage the new burner as well. Right, now that that's sorted, we can put the electrodes in. And moment of truth. Sorted. No more explosive ignition. For this job, customer complained that the heating is coming on whenever they turn on the hot water. So I've come to inspect the wiring center, and the zone valve is also here. As I'm playing with it, I can see that it's just kaput, finished. As I'm pushing the little tail, it's not snapping back. So 99% is probably going to be the zone valve, but I'm going to do a few checks just to confirm. Now, I'll be completely honest, I don't come across wire plans that often. So when I do, I'm always a bit fuzzy on the details of what cable does what and exactly how it works, because they're very different to S-plans. So I always go back to this little wire plan cheat sheet that I made myself to remind me of what everything does and how it all should work. In the end, it was obvious it was a zone valve, but it's still important to check everything else, because let's suppose you go to the merchants, come back with a zone valve, and then you realize, oh wait, this is also faulty as well. You don't want to do that trip twice. This is an old zone valve. You can see it's seen better days, and if we compare it to the new one, completely different. Now let's quickly speed run through these cables. That's the neutral done, earth done, heating and hot water cable done, heating cable done, last but not least, switch live. Alright, let's turn it on and see what's going on. So now I'm just going to confirm everything's working the way it should. I'm getting the right voltage on the right cables. And it's all good. Another happy customer. For this job, we've got a boiler repair on a main Eco Elite, which looks like it's been infested with mice. Now, I do have a question. For those of you that don't work with gloves, what would you do in this situation? Because if you tell me you would touch this with your bare hands, then you're definitely braver than me, because I just could never. I would rather spend 20 minutes going to the shop, buy gloves, come back, and then do it than touch that bare hand. Anyway, we've got an E1604, which means that the fan is faulty. To make sure it's the fan, we're going to reset the boiler, test we're getting 230 going to the fan. We are, which shows that it's the fan that's faulty. So I've got a spare fan in the van. bit of a tongue twister, spare fan in the fan. But just before I start stripping it down, I'll always unplug the old fan, plug the connections into the new fan, just to make sure that the fan works okay. Now that's confirmed, we're going to strip the old fan out. So I'm going to start with this gas pipe, which goes from the top of the gas valve to the fan. Also, you can see there's a nut and bolt missing from the main heat exchanger there, which I didn't notice until I got to this part. Luckily, I found it right there behind the fan. So no idea how that got there, but I'm going to put that back in once I put everything back together. I always keep this small spanner on my keys because I think it is one of the most handiest things sometimes. So for example, when it comes to changing these fans, really nice to use because it's so small. That's the old fan out, new fan on. And there we go, the new fan is working. Out of all of the diverters, this one is the longest to change. So the customer complained that they don't have any hot water, so I've asked them to run the hot tap, and when they do, you see the little pin comes out a tad, but not enough to push the micro switch to fire up the boiler. So if I manually push that switch, the boiler does fire up and it works. However, now that I've pushed that switch, the heating is coming on when it shouldn't. So in this video, I'm going to be stripping out this whole diverter section and putting in a new one. So the first thing we need to do is isolate the flow and return and also the cold going into the boiler. Then we can start to drain down the boiler. There are two ways you can take this diverter out. You can take out these connections here, but I've always found that to be a pain because undoing and doing that tiny nut there is just long. So what you can do is if you look on this right side, then there's just one clip right there. I don't know if the camera's gonna focus, but if you just pop out that clip, then it all just unhooks out. Using a screwdriver, I'm just going to pry it off, but I'm not going to do it on camera with one hand because if that clip goes flying and I can't find it after, it's a nightmare. So I'm going to use one hand to pry it off and then the other hand to catch it. Then with a little bit of forearm strength and a little bit of a wiggle, that should come out. And now this whole section should wiggle forward. This is the small nut I was referring to earlier, and you can see how much of a struggle it is to undo it while the whole diverter is out. So imagine trying to do that inside the boiler and then do it up long. That's the new diverter there. Now you don't have to change over the diverter. You can get a service kit and just change all the internals of the old diverter. It's a lot cheaper, a lot more time consuming. If you do want to see a video of me changing all the internals, then I have a video of that on YouTube, which you can watch from beginning to end. And there you go, this job is done. Now if you do want to see a video of me doing this job from beginning to end with no cuts to see what it looks like in real life, all the awkward angles, then I've got a video up on my YouTube. If not, then I think it's on my membership site. We have a few things to repair on the spoiler. One of them is this leaky AAV, and the second thing is you can see from the pressure gauge the boiler is empty, and that's because the filling loop on this doesn't work. So we'll be changing that over as well. And while the boiler is draining, I'm going to charge the expansion vessel to make sure the boiler is fully drained. Using my grips, I'm going to twist the AAV out. Now that the AAV is sorted, we can move on to the filling loop. And there we are, filling loop sorted, AAV sorted. This Worcester is good to go. For this one, we got a nice and simple job. We're going to replace this faulty timer. Give it a little bit of a wiggle and it should pop right off. Taking a quick look at the wiring diagram on the back of the programmer so I can identify which cable is which. And we have life. This job is sorted. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I did listen to the feedback from last time and I did make this video significantly longer than the last one. And I've got to admit, it did touch my little heart seeing all the comments saying you watch all the way to the end. So I appreciate every single one of you. I'll try to keep the videos longer and engaging, but I will see you in the next video.